Welcome to the podcast. Happy that you are joining me. It's late September if you're listening to this live, but this is going to be an episode that you are going to want to listen to again. I have Susan Brott, APR, out of CESO Communications, joining me today, and we're talking all about mentorship. Susan actually was recently awarded the very prestigious Barry Gaskins Mentorship Award through NSPRA, and she's going to talk about what that award meant to her. She's going to talk about the importance of mentors in her life and what she gets out of a mentor-mentee relationship as the mentor. She gets almost as much out as the mentee. She's going to talk about how to create those relationships, how they're structured versus formal or informal. And then if you're looking for a mentor, we're going to kind of talk through the steps of how to find that person that can help you. I know that the school PR community is so giving, and there are people out there that want to help guide you, encourage you, and help you along the way. And so I hope that this episode, this interview is really going to inspire you to seek out that relationship. So let's get started. All right, today's K12 PR tip, which we start every episode with a little quick tip, is on Instagram Reels. Have you heard about this? It's like TikTok, but for Instagram. So many school communicators have thought about, gosh, should we have a TikTok channel for our school? And I always caution and say, hey, don't start it if you're not ready to take it on, because some of us are so overworked anyways to take on one more thing and to gather one more audience on TikTok. It could be challenging, but most schools already have an Instagram channel. So I just want to encourage you, Instagram Reels is worth a shot. I did an Instagram reel, and my first one actually reached over 14,000 people. Now, subsequent tries at some Instagram reels haven't reached that many people, but you guys, I only have like 600 followers on my Social School for EDU Instagram page, and I had one reel that reached over 14,000 people. So it may be worth a talking about at your school to see if Instagram reels might be something for you. It's not just like dance videos. It's actually can be used to inform and celebrate and educate and entertain your school community. And I would suggest probably the first step is to talk to some kids and do some brainstorming of what you could do, and then possibly bring them in to help you create some Instagram reels. But I've seen some great examples from some schools doing it. I'll be doing some future articles and some more training, in-depth training in our membership group that is our most popular program that people are part of. So we'll be doing some hands-on training on Instagram Reels, but you might just want to check it out. If nothing else, just start watching it a little bit and start thinking about it from the lens of how could we use this for our school. So now let's get over to today's interview with Susan Brott. Welcome to the podcast, Susan Brott. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, Andrea. Thank you for having me.
Yes. And, with the pandemic kind of still going on, it's really nice to be able to join virtually. Susan and
Yes,
I are seeing each other because we do
yes.
broadcast this podcast on YouTube as well. I
Mhm.
think a lot of people know who you are, Susan, but if you would just kind of introduce yourself, tell them a little bit about your current role as Senior Strategic Consultant at CESO,
Mhm.
and just give us a little background.
Sure. So I have been involved in school communications for over 20 years. I kind of lose count after that. 20, 25 years or so. For the last year plus, I have been a senior strategic consultant at CESO Communications, which has been super fun. But prior to that, I served in 4 different school districts around the Minneapolis, St. Paul, Twin Cities metro area. So I started my career in White Bear Lake, suburb just northeast of St. Paul. And then I went to the West St. Paul, Mendota Heights, Eagan area schools, otherwise known as District 197. And then I went to Edina Public Schools, and then I went to South St. Paul Public Schools, and then I joined CESO. So kind of just kept driving around the metro. So yeah, it's been a
That
wonderful experience. And the fact that I get to be a consultant doing work in schools and still being connected to that. And that's all we do are schools. So that's been really important. Hmm.
Yeah, using all of that experience that you had directly with schools, and now you're
Yeah.
able to help a lot of, I'm sure, school PR leaders and other leaders within schools, right, with communications.
Yeah, yeah, we work with school districts across the country. Sometimes we are helping school communications folks like ourselves, and sometimes we are working with superintendents directly, doing, maybe it's a strategic planning process or engagement or something like that, but also just, there's a lot of districts that don't have on, dedicated communication staff. And so we're happy to be able to help them as well. So it's been really fun getting to know how schools work in outside of Minnesota. It's been great.
Yeah, awesome. So how did you, everybody's journey is a little bit different into like
Hmm.
school communications, and you've been
Hmm.
there for a lot of years, but how did you get into school communications in the first place?
Well, I have the non-traditional journey. A lot of people either came through the journalism area or a marketing PR kind of thing. I was a math major in college that just happened to pick up a double major my senior year because it was cool and it was a liberal arts school, so you could do that. So I got a communications degree, and then I went straight to graduate school in political rhetoric and public address back in the East Coast. So coming back from that, I came back here to Minnesota and just, wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. Knew that I needed a break from schooling, formal schooling, because I had been doing it and I was 24 years old. And I happened to be back in a district, just my home district, in the community education and recreation department. He's like, I'm looking for somebody. I had done about 9 months doing communications and marketing for a private company, a transportation company. Freight forwarding, and it just was not my thing, and I knew it wasn't my thing, and so fell into a community ed role. And then when I was in that district, they didn't have a communications person, and the superintendent kind of tapped into me and said, I think you know some things about communications, and we're thinking about hiring a communications person. So about 3 years later, I was selected to be the communications person for that school district, and that was White Bear Lake, which was the district I grew up in. Go Bears! And it is, it was a great journey to start a career in, and to be able to, every district that I worked in as a communications director, I was the first communications person in that district. So to be able to start departments or start a role, and help a district really understand the need for dedicated strategic communications was really fun, and it's kind of a little niche market of mine apparently. So that's what I do.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. Well, first of all, I didn't realize you were a math major.
Yes.
I was a chemistry major, Susan. So
Yeah,
like
see,
we got math
yay.
science down,
Yes,
and now we
yes,
are school PR people.
yeah,
But
right.
every school you went into, you were the first person to like
Mhm.
start that department. Oh
Right.
my
Yep.
gosh, that's amazing.
Well, the one district I went into, they had cut the communications department 6 years prior to me being there through budget and stuff like that. And then they came back and said we wanted something different. And so that one, technically, I suppose there was somebody, but they didn't have a dedicated communications person. So yeah, it was. Um, it's been interesting to kind of, it's kind of fun to build your own kind of thing, and especially when I talk to others who have kind of come in after other people, and I think of that as we think about mentoring, not to jump ahead, but it's so important, whenever I have left a district, to be really clear to say I've done what I can do here, let somebody else come in and take it to the next level, and to really set it up that next person for success, because I think that would be really challenging for someone to come in and follow someone and to be like, oh well, Susan did it this way and Susan did it that way. And I think it's so important that we just encourage our colleagues to say do it your way. So
Right. Yeah. That's awesome. And you mentioned mentorship, because this is what this
mhm,
podcast, I really wanted to focus
yeah,
around mentorship. You were recently awarded with the 2021 Barry Gaskins Mentor Legacy Award. It's a very,
mhm,
very prestigious award from
yeah.
NSPRA. Can you tell me a little bit about the award, and then also what it means to be selected as a winner?
Right. So Barry Gaskins is a former NSPRA president, National School Public Relations Association president, who passed away too soon back in 2003, 2004, something like that. Anyway, he was very big on mentoring. And so when he passed away, a lot of colleagues of his said, what a great way to be able to honor our own would be to honor somebody who believes in mentoring and nurturing others in this profession. And so that's what the award is about. And I am extremely humbled and honored. I've sat at a number, every year I get the NSPRA news, or you go to the seminar and you see the person getting it and you just think, oh my gosh, what a great person to receive this award. So many of the people who have received the award ahead of me, I consider to be my mentors. And so to be among them, I mean, part of it's like, oh, so I'm older now, but it's also, also partly just to think, gosh, what a humbling company to be kept with. And I really, I was so moved to receive it. Because I think of so many others who are worthy of this as well, and I can't wait to see who follows. But yeah, it was such a great experience to be able to go and receive it in person. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do that between pandemic and personal health situations, but my doctor allowed me a very short window to fly to New Orleans and to fly out, and to have my family there with me. It was so wonderful. And it was just so exciting to be able to share that with so many people. And it's one of those acceptance speeches like you see on the Academy Awards where you're like, I'm never going to get anybody and I'm going to forget somebody. And so I just want to shout out to everybody who's always mentored me. Thank you, because I wouldn't be there if it wasn't for them.
Your acceptance speech was amazing. As
Thank you.
you're such a great communicator, and it was funny, and it was interactive, and when you actually gave that speech, I just thought to myself, I've got to get Susan on the podcast. I've got to get to share
Oh,
some
that's
of that
kind.
knowledge. But I also met a guest that I just recently had, Christine Peck,
Hmm.
through you because you
Yes.
specifically talked about her story in your acceptance speech. So that was
Yeah.
really cool.
Very cool. Yeah. She was when I used to co-facilitate the new professionals pre-seminar at the NSPRA seminar every year. And she was in one of my first groups. And I remember when she walked in and she had such poise and such presence and yet was so eager to learn. And I thought, this is a woman who's really going to move school communications in California. And just her personal story and what she's been able to do. And I am in awe of her, and I'm so glad that you got to talk with her because she really is an amazing woman.
And then I'm not
And I
sure
love
what
her book.
episode number.
Her children's book is so cool. So,
Yes,
yes.
that was her COVID project, was a children's book
Oh
that
my
she wrote.
gosh.
Um, I'll have to mention in the show notes the episode number, but Christine was
Yeah.
just a guest. And another one of your mentees, Verona Johans, what's her last name?
Gallegos
Veronica?
Johansson. Yes. Hmm.
Okay. And she was also a guest, and I didn't even know you guys were connected. And all of a sudden, you're sending her
Yeah.
flowers. She's giving you a Twitter
Oh,
shout out, and so you're intimately connected with all of these rising up and comers in school PR.
yeah. Well, and actually, Veronica is such a wonderful story, and I was so excited to be able to tell her that to announce that at the end of my speech because we got connected because of social media. So, ironically, I'm talking to you, the queen of social media, and because it was all because I happened to be responding to the Twitter post that NSPRA did about me receiving this award, and she said, I would love a mentor. And I was like, well, heck, let's connect, and I actually just we do our monthly check-ins, in addition to lots of text messages back and forth, but we had our monthly check-in yesterday, and it's just so delightful to talk to her. And she's so fun and spirited. And I'm so glad that I saw that you did an episode with her about storytelling, because that woman knows how to find stories. But she calls me a mentor, and yet I have learned so much from her as well, which I think is, how I look at mentorship. It's not a one-way thing; it's a two-way thing. So, yeah, it's exciting that you talked to so many
Yeah.
people that I admire. Yeah.
So why is that internal commitment? Because I know, Susan, you are very busy with formal like and now you
Yeah,
consult obviously through
yeah.
your company, but obviously
Hmm.
these mentor-mentee relationships that you've had, they're not paid. I mean, but you're making the
Yeah.
time for them. Why is that so important? Why are you so committed to that?
I think it's there's a couple pieces to that. One, um, I I know how much mentors have shaped me, whether it was professionally or personally, and how I've gotten through things. And I know that it's part of my responsibility to give that back to people and pay it. Actually, I wouldn't even say give back; it's pay it forward. And I also think it's really rooted. And I talked a little bit about this in my speech about. It's just part of my DNA and my family. I mean, I was raised by two teachers. We're constantly learning, constantly hungry to learn more, and to always be thinking about how can you learn more, and how can you help others learn more. And so that love of learning is what I really attribute my love of mentoring to. And I got to tell you, those conversations like the one I had yesterday with Veronica was, they are so uplifting, and they're so they inspire me. Like, I remember getting off the phone and then jumping on a Zoom call with a client and thinking, oh, I'm so motivated, like it just energizes me. And I don't think I'm necessarily imparting all this amazing wisdom. It's just having the conversation and having that connection with people. I think is really what makes a great mentorship. And I think about people who I have been mentored by, who I consider to be my strong mentors. And now a couple of them are colleagues, which is, just amazing to me that I get to work alongside them. But, mentors, they pop up in your life at the weirdest times, but yet when you reflect back on it, it's really, they were there for a reason. And if you're able to connect with them, um, it's just, it's so powerful. And I think about just having somebody to be able to call when you're going, oh gosh, I'm frustrated, I'm down, my confidence is down. Like, how do I get through this? Knowing that you have people to lean on through that is how we get through this work. And our work is so challenging and sometimes so isolating that you have to be able to have that connection and that network of people who you can lean on. And I know we talk about in NSPRA, we talk about NSPRA as a big family, and you connect with each other. And yet, um, that one-on-one mentoring kind of relationship is so critical as well. I mean, it's one thing to know that you've got people to call on who are always going to be there, and that's wonderful about NSPRA. But to be able to go just dig a little bit deeper and do that personal connection and get to know someone. I mean, Veronica and I talked about lots of communication stuff yesterday and school stuff yesterday, and we also talked about salsa recipes. So, I mean, how do you dig in and really build connections with people? And that's, I don't look at it. I mean, it's something on my calendar that we do, and I love it and I look forward to it. And you know, whether I get paid for it or not, that doesn't matter, because it's about, I'm getting paid in so many other ways about it. And it's worth my time to do that and to build that connection with people.
So, when you have kind of a relationship like that, is it really formal, or are you definitely
Mm.
trying to check in once a month, and then like at the end of that call, are you kind of saying, okay, when are we going to meet next month? I know you talked about, hey, there might be a lot of text messages in between there, and there's highs and
Yeah.
lows, but
Hmm.
just curious about how formal of a process you have.
Yeah, I mean, the ones that I have set up individually, as opposed to being part of a MINSPRA mentor network, those are a little bit more formalized. When I reached out, Veronica is my example, most recent example, right? And so I responded to her tweet and said, "Hey, direct message me. Let's figure something out." And we were able to get on a call. And that just, I said, if you want, I'm here for you. How do you want to do it? It's really was like, what is she looking for? And she said, just having a monthly connection that I know is on the calendar was really important to her. And so now it's just become like this sacred thing that we don't touch on our calendar, right? And then, when she'll text me and say, "Hey, do you have a minute just to chat?" Absolutely. I mean, it's not like we can only connect then, but I think sometimes I definitely, when I saw that question when you sent it to me, it's like, well, no, of course it's informal. And then I thought, but it does help to put some formal things around it. To have a commitment to it, to make sure that it does meet those expectations of both parties, I think is important. So, but I don't think it has to be formalized like we have to follow a script. I mean, I've signed up recently to be a mentor in my alumni association from college, and they recently sent this. Okay, here's your match, and here's our expectations that you connect at least once a month. How you do that, what you do, and who knows, we might connect more than that, whatever works. But I think it's about, there needs to be a hint of formality so that there is the commitment and accountability to it. And that's what I think works. But, now when I look at my mentors, of course, I don't have those as much because the relationship has been more longstanding and ongoing. And so whether, if Veronica and I are still connecting with each other every month 2 years from now, great. But if not, whatever is going to work for both parties, I think is what's there. And so I definitely would say they don't have to be formal, but I think creating some clear expectations of, I am here for you and this is our dedicated time, but you call me anytime you need to. That's really important as well.
Yeah. And I think of, I mean, mentor mentee relationships, kind of like you talked about getting inspired and energized. Sometimes
Hmm.
you feel like, as the mentor, you don't necessarily have to have all the answers, but you get just as much out of the relationship because there's a lot of things called like reverse mentorship. And I really think
Right.
about this when I think about social media because there's so many kids that, okay, if I need to know how to make an Instagram reel, like I just need to
Right.
talk to a 14-year-old girl, right?
Yeah.
Or boy.
Right.
So there's some of that I think that comes into it. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think about that term reverse mentorship, and part of me kind of bristles at that term because I'm like, no, true mentorship is two-way no matter what, right? So, but I do definitely appreciate it. I mean, I know I have colleagues who, when it comes to social media analytics or things, and I'm just like, yeah, you need to talk to her because she knows way more than I do about this, and so um and I do, I lean on my younger colleagues who have better understanding of certain communication things that I do. But I definitely get so much out of those conversations, and I always get ideas. I'm like, they'll say, "Well, what about this?" And I'll be like, "Hadn't thought about that, but that's awesome. Tell me why you want to think you do it. Why are you doing it?" And so I think if we can be really open to always learning from each other, that's the best relationship. It's not about, and I think of it, and I think I actually said a little bit of this in my speech. We work with teachers all the time, and the shift in education about this, sage on the stage to guide on the side, right? Like teachers aren't just standing up in front of 30 kids and imparting wisdom and knowledge to people. It's about, I'm your coach and I'm going alongside you and I'm helping you discover things, and that kind of a thing. That's what I think about with mentorship. I might know more because I have years of experience or something, but you know just as much about something else. And so, because we can't all know everything about everything. So, for Veronica, she's in Texas. And I'm like, tell me about what it's like to be in Texas. I don't know what it's like to be in Texas, right? So, to work there and to work in a district that is different than ones that I have worked with in Minnesota. And so just to have those different perspectives is so valuable. And that's what I love about those kinds of conversations.
Well, and I imagine, just like you said, you don't always know everything, but
Mhm.
I feel probably both of us, Susan, if we don't know something, we know somebody who does. So
Absolutely.
helping getting
Absolutely.
them more networked and connected with other people
Yes.
too, and
Yes,
not being
for
afraid to
sure.
reach out. Because I think, and I truly believe this, knowing that I was a total outsider, knew absolutely nothing when I started my business in 2014. The school PR community has just like put their arms around me and said,
Mhm.
"Hey, we'll teach you. Like,
Yeah.
we'll welcome you in, and here's more about this." And even had people lovingly call me out when I had things that were not not written or displayed in the right way, because I've got my own limited view, right,
Mhm.
of my own
Mhm.
experiences. But we've got a community here to help you grow into that,
Right.
and it's amazing.
Right. Exactly. No, I couldn't agree more. And that has been really part of the joy of all of this. And I think about a conversation I had last week with a colleague that I'm working with, kind of coaching in another state, and she was bringing up things in her background in higher ed, and I was like, "Gosh, that's brilliant! Like that's so smart." And she's like, "Well, but I've only been doing this for less than a year." I was like, don't discount that. Like we need to keep having fresh ideas coming in. And, and I think sometimes it's just being a mentor is just about being a really good listener, and just really listening for understanding and listening to affirm. And how can we, how can we, encourage the person on the other end of the line, and just say, yeah, you're doing the right thing. I mean, most of the time my conversations with people where I'm considered the mentor are really about, you know what, you are doing the right thing. This is great. Or, you know what, this is good, but let's also think about, how can this be a little bit more strategic? Or, you said something a few minutes ago that I think really ties into this. And so it's just really being that another set of ears to listen to people. And especially a lot of us in our jobs in school communications, we're the only ones doing it in our districts and our organizations, and you feel a little bit like, oh, I don't know, am I doing the right thing? Is this right? And it's like, I can't tell you what the right thing is because every community is going to be different, but I can ask you questions to make you think a little bit deeper and to, reflect on it a little bit. And I think that's where the wisdom comes, from those of us who have been there, done that. It's like, I might not have done that, but I know what questions to ask, and to how to, get you to think about it and make sure that it's really getting at whatever the outcome is that you're trying to achieve.
I love that. And it reminds me of, professional athletes,
Mhm.
professional musicians. Many of
Mhm.
those, they have instructors, they have coaches, even if they're considered like the best of on their game, they're always
Absolutely.
looking for improvements, and getting that
Mhm.
feedback is so, so powerful.
Right.
We can always learn and we can always
For
grow.
sure.
So
For sure.
if someone's listening right now and they're seeking out to either be a mentor or be a
Mhm.
mentee, and they're looking, what would be the first step they would take?
I think if you're looking for mentors, it is just to be out there and be willing to ask and be vulnerable. I think sometimes, and I was guilty of this early in my career of like, well, I'm worried if I ask for help or then admit that I don't know how to do something, that I'm gonna look bad to my boss, or I'm gonna, and it's like, no, of course not. Of course you can't know everything. So encouraging people to say it's okay to ask for help and put yourself out there. Again, Veronica just writes, I would love a mentor. And now look what kind of a relationship we have. And so I think being able to be out there and be on the platforms where you are going to find somebody, and Twitter is a great platform for that. Collegially, I think if you want to be a mentor, look and see maybe your local chapter or organization, whatever organization you're in, has formal opportunities to be involved in that way. But I also think it's about reflecting on what is it that I have that I feel like I could really share with somebody. What's that gift that I have? What talent do I have? Maybe I've done a lot of work in website design, and I'm willing to put myself out there to say, hey, if anybody wants to just connect about this or build a network about it, and say, anybody want to get together and talk about it? But I think, I rarely do I come out and say I'm going to be a mentor, because it feels a little arrogant, or
Yep.
something like I have wisdom to impart. But I think it's more about just saying, hey, you know what? I really love this work that I'm doing, and I would love to connect with others who do this work or are interested in it. And I've seen that happen, and especially on social media, I've seen it happen in Facebook or LinkedIn or something, and you join a group and then you start building connections and learning about it. But I think it's really about willing to be vulnerable, right? So to know that, to say, I don't know everything. I'm a huge Brene Brown fan. So, be vulnerable. And then also know that as a mentor, you're not there to say, I know everything. I think, you think of the best mentors that I've had, and they don't always know the answer. And a lot of times I've called up Susan Hardy Brooks and said, "Hey, Susan, I just need to flush this by you." Or, mentors that aren't even in school communications and just really are about like career growth or something. The people that I've worked with in the past or that I know are just smart people that I like to talk to, and I love to just say, "Can I just run something by you?" And I think about, I have a former superintendent I worked with years ago that I still call him periodically, and we meet for breakfast periodically because I consider him to be a mentor, and I'm sure he'd be like, "No," but it's like I like how your brain works, and I know that you know me, so you can help me through this. Help me unpack this and figure out what's going on so that I make a good decision. And you just need people like that out there. So be willing to do that.
Yeah,
And I have
I like
and
that.
I have those. Yeah, well, and just think about the different aspects of your work and your life that could use that kind of encouragement and that kind of reflection, and somebody who's got your back, who just knows about it. I mean, I have certain people in my life that help me with different things, whether I'm really passionate about racial equity, and so, but I'm also a white woman from Minnesota, so I know that I have lots to learn. So I seek out people and have built connections and relationships with people who can help me think differently, and help me reflect on it. And then I have people who have just been really great strategists. And so help me think strategically about something, whether it's I'm thinking about doing a new job, I'm thinking about this consulting thing. Is this the right thing for me? Is this, just having those people who understand those different aspects of your life and can be there for you. But you got to be vulnerable. You've got to be willing to say, "I don't know and I need help."
Yeah, and with how fast things change, we all of
Oh
us
my
can
goodness.
say that we don't know everything.
Right.
So
For sure. For
so
sure.
that that's awesome, and I think, if you wanna be a mentor, look for those opportunities, like you said,
Hmm.
in a non-arrogant way of just being, "Hey, I
Yeah.
can I can help you," and you never know
Yeah.
what will develop, from that.
Right.
I know one thing is that school PR people, they don't give themselves enough credit, I think, in some cases,
Hmm.
because, like, even when I
Hmm.
ask some people to be on this podcast, they're like, "I don't know what I'd share." I'm like, "You just sharing what you do every day, like, there's
Yeah.
amazing things that are happening that is gonna
Right.
give somebody else an aha moment that it's like, 'Oh my gosh, this could be so much easier if I did it this way.'" Um,
Yes. Right.
so just being open, but,
Hmm.
again, we've got a community to support one another.
We
Mentorship is
do.
certainly a great spot to start. We've got a whole list of, winners, like you said, and now yours is among them. So, again,
I know.
congratulations.
Oh, thank
Uh,
you. So
and
humbling.
and
So,
yeah, and just keep up the great work because now you get to,
thanks.
do even more mentorship, really, I think, through the work that you're
Yeah.
doing there at CESO. And
Yeah.
we're going to leave all of the contact information and a website and all of that
Sure.
for you guys there at CESO. But if somebody wanted to be connected to you, Susan, what's the
Hmm.
best way?
I would say either email or Twitter. I'm pretty good on Twitter about if you just want, and it's just at Susan Brott. Um, and then my email is susan.brott at theceso.com, THECESO. But or text me. I don't care. My cell phone number is out there for the world as my business number. So feel free, 651-245-5253. Send me a text and say, "Hey, I would love to chat with you." I'm more than happy to do that. So yeah, I just think, I love connecting with people. I love being able to give back. It's the little teacher in me when I was a kid, and I was the youngest, and so I was always trying to prove myself to other people and learn. And it's part of my DNA, and I can't not want to help other people. So thank you for this opportunity to do this and have this conversation. It's been really fun.
Yes, and hopefully it'll inspire some others to share and to ask
Oh, I
for
hope
help.
so. I hope so.
Just keep up the great work. We'll put
Thank
all of
you.
the email and the Twitter handle and all
Great.
that in the show notes as well, but I
Yeah.
really appreciate you taking the time, and thank you guys
Thank
all
you.
for listening in today. I hope you're able to take action. We'll see you later, Susan.